Yeah, we haven't talked about this for a little while, but just so you know, I became the interim pastor here in January, and when you're the interim pastor, you have no idea how long that role is going to be. At a point in the process, I was asked would I like to apply for the position, and I just so you know, I love you, and I've so enjoyed being here, and we'll see how long all the transition, if this is the person or not. But a thing to say is I'm just not able at this life stage and with other commitments that I have. I've got about 3 other things that I do. So I don't really feel like I can commit what this church needs and deserves. So that we're just trusting God to bring someone who has more time and maybe a different life phase too, we'll see, that can really invest in you and love you and shepherd you more holistically than I can, because I'm mainly Sundays, and Monday morning I meet with the staff and do some leader meetings in some evenings once a month, and then once a quarter with leaders. So it's a pretty limited role I have, and there's a lot more to being a pastor than speaking on Sundays, just so you know. So I'm really praying and hoping the church does calls that someone is called here who can give more time and energy to the role. But it's no reflection of the fact that I don't love you, nor do I feel that you haven't loved me well. You've been like so loving toward me. Absolutely. So I just wanted to say that. All right. So we've been talking the last few weeks about 3 people in the Old Testament that you have to really understand their stories a bit to understand who Jesus is. So we got a little pop quiz. We got first-time guests who haven't been here in a long time today, and we got 3 people who haven't been here for a long time. So it's really exciting to see new people here. But for those of you who've been here, you're getting a little pop quiz. So 3 people in the Old Testament, really important to know their stories. We're going to tell a bit of one of them today. So the first one, the founder, the one God started the whole movement of choosing a nation and chose to be the father of the nation, is Abraham. And then at a point in history when God needed a deliverer to take them out of Egypt, he raised up Moses. And then 400 years after that, when he established a kingdom that would be like a picture of his reign on earth, that person was named David. Okay, so we started this year, actually in January, we went through David's most famous psalm, Psalm 23. And so we're going to talk about Moses, though, more today. So Moses appears at this really interesting time in history. God's called Abraham, the patriarchs, they're called the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, those 3 generations. And then Jacob gets renamed Israel. He has 12 sons. One of them doesn't become one of the tribes, Joseph, but his 2 kids get adopted. So there's really like 13 tribes, but we call them 12 because it comes through Joseph. But those 12 tribes of Israel become the tribes that we know all through the Old Testament. And Moses is called then after this long period of slavery, 400 years that they were in Egypt, and a lot of that, we don't know the exact number of years they were slaves, because in the beginning they were welcome guests, honored because Joseph had been raised up to save their nation. So they were honored for a while, but then when they became populous, they were threatening, and because they were immigrants, they were easy to marginalize, so they were enslaved. So for some long period of time, they're enslaved. God raises up someone, Moses, who was a Jewish person. Well, Hebrew. They didn't call them Jews yet then. Hebrew. He was Hebrew, and he was supposed to get killed because the king had said, kill all the firstborn, all the male children, kill them all. That way we're going to limit their population. So he's rescued by the Pharaoh's daughter out of the river, when his family puts him in a little raft, hoping someone will find him. And so he's rescued. He's raised in Pharaoh's household, but he knows he's not Egyptian. He knows he's not in the royal line of the Pharaoh. He rises up to try to help his people. They don't want him to lead. He has to flee because now he's killed an Egyptian. He's in the wilderness for 40 years, just tending sheep, a nobody in the backwoods, and no one's ever going to hear about him again. And we talked about that last week. So he does go back to Egypt. He is used by God to bring judgment because they wouldn't let his people go. And every time he says, will you let us go yet? And the Pharaoh says, no, and another plague. Will you let us go yet? No, another plague. Will you let us go 10 times? Finally, they're released. After they're released, Pharaoh changes his mind, sends his army after them. They drown in the Red Sea, and now they're getting ready to enter into the Promised Land. And one of the things that God told them to do in this stage was to remember that they were once enslaved, that they were delivered, and they were being led to a promised land. Now, if you have any part of your story in your life where you've experienced oppression, brokenness, addiction, rejection, any kind of hurt, emotional, physical, social, financial, just the crushing of life when things have come upon you that have been overwhelming, then you're prepared to be rescued, to be saved. And some of you, when we tell these stories during the share time, it's partly to give fresh testimony. Like, how is God at work in our lives now? He saved us. He rescued us from something. One of you sent me some texts this week to give me like a background on your life story. And I just want to say, what a cool thing just to hear rescue and deliverance and hope coming back. That's awesome. And we all have stories. And if we had the time, not everyone wants to share in a large room, but if we spend time with one another one-on-one in Bible studies and phone calls and whatever, and hear each other's stories, we find out how God's delivered us, where we were enslaved, where we were oppressed, and how God delivered us into a better future. So one of the things God asked them to do was to permanently remember that they were slaves who were rescued by God. And the way that he gave them to remember that, they called Passover. Because the last plague was God told Pharaoh, are you going to let my people go? He said no. Okay, well, what's going to happen now is an angel's going to come, and the firstborn sons of your houses are going to die. And he told his people to mark yourselves as my people. You're going to take the blood of a lamb, and you're going to kill it and eat it together as a feast. And you're going to take the blood, and you're going to put it on the doorposts of your homes. And when the angel of death comes to visit Egypt, every home that is marked by the blood of a lamb will be passed over. There will be no judgment on those homes. So God's people had a choice. Are we going to listen to God and obey him and ask for the blood to be applied to the doorways of our lives and our hearts, not just literal homes, but our hearts? And if we act in faith, we'll be delivered from judgment. And it was, 1,500 years later that someone that Moses talked about went to a wooden cross, blood was applied to it, so that our sins could be passed over if we turn to him and trust him. So Passover became a remembrance of the past that they were delivered, but also a picture of the future, that someone's coming who's going to make Passover a picture of what was to be. And that person's going to be Jesus. But they're remembering in Passover the larger feast. It's a week, and it's called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And Passover happens toward the end of the week. So unleavened bread remembers a deliverance and an exodus from slavery at Passover. So God commands them forever and ever and ever, his people, to remember that they were slaves, that they were passed over when they trusted him, and the blood of the Lamb was applied to their lives, and they are now in the promised land because he has taken them on that journey. So he tells them forever, celebrate the festival of unleavened bread. So as you know, we're doing this I Am series. We started it last week by getting the background of Moses in Exodus 3. So each week we're going to look at a different statement that Jesus makes about himself that's an echo back to what Moses was told about God's name. He's I Am, the one who always is, the one who will be, the one who has been, the I Am, the great I Am, as we sang about. So they were to celebrate this festival every single year. In fact, they already had a new year. And in Hebrew, you might have heard, if you have Jewish friends, Rosh Hashanah. So that means the head of the year. So their new year is in like September. And they've been celebrating it longer than January 1st has been celebrated, by the way. So I think they got dibs on when New Year's should be. But it's around September, usually. It's lunar calendar, so it varies a little bit. But God, because of this deliverance, he actually created 2 New Years for them. And what he said is, on this day, which usually happens in about April, and it kind of follows Easter because it's lunar as well. So it's usually around our Easter as Jesus followers, there's Passover. And it's a remembrance of that day that they're to keep before them forever and ever and ever. And when they left Egypt, they had to leave in a hurry. Now, during COVID, how many of you got into making sourdough bread? Any of you? That was like a thing at my house. Nobody did? How many of you have ever made bread? How many of you have ever used yeast before? Okay. So yeast is a little microorganism that eats sugar, and let's be delicate in church, gives off gas, carbon dioxide. And it makes things rise up. It fills the bread with air to make it light and fluffy. Well, they had to leave so quickly that they didn't, what their version of things would have been like a natural occurring yeast. Like you can make sourdough like anywhere in the world because there's yeast all over the world. And if you're fancy, you think you can tell the difference. I don't know. But anyway, the San Francisco one is one particular one that's gotten very famous. But when you're making that bread, you have to let it rise before you bake it. The yeast has to have time to get into the dough, eat the sugar, create the gas that makes it wonderful and fluffy. And is there anything better than fresh baked bread? Oh, so good. But they didn't have time to let it rise, so they had to leave before the bread had risen. And so that's why it's called unleavened bread, unyeasted bread. They didn't have time to let it rise. And cultures all over the world also have flatbreads, which is what they were eating at the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So if you're in Latin America culture, you have tortillas. You know, if you're in, you have pita in the Middle East. You have flatbread, naan in India. You have flatbreads all over the world. Different cultures have flatbreads. Well, this is the Jewish flatbread, unleavened bread, and they were to celebrate this. And at the beginning of the week, one of the games you do if you're raised in an observant Jewish home, you go through and you find all the yeast bread in the house, and the parents hide it like Easter eggs. And all the kids have to go find all the yeast bread in the house because they have to collect it and get rid of it. And during that week, you'll only eat unleavened bread. So God says, get rid of all the yeast. Yeast becomes a symbol then of sin in the Bible usually. So get rid of the yeast. It'll only be unleavened bread during this time. At the end, there's going to be a sacrifice of a lamb. There's going to be a feast celebrated together that the lamb has created the Passover, and our sins are forgiven through the blood of a lamb. And they remember that. So they're going along now, following the Lord in the desert. They've been delivered. They're headed toward the promised land. And the book of Exodus and Numbers then that follows tells about the constant struggle they have to remain grateful and keep trusting God. They have seen 10 literal, miracles. And after they get through the Red Sea, which could be 11, so they have 11 miracles now. The thing you notice is that they're just like we are. they struggle with gratitude. They start taking things for granted. They stop praising God for their daily provision. And they literally say, let's kill Moses and Aaron. Let's go back to Egypt and be slaves again, because when we were in Egypt, we had meat and we had bread. We're going to die out here in the wilderness. There's no food out here. God's not going to take care of us. Let's kill our leaders and go back into slavery. And maybe you know what that experience is like, where you forget what God is doing in your life presently. You go back to things that brought death into your life, thinking that'll be better than trusting God with an unknown future. So on one of these occasions, God, I don't know if God spoke in Hebrew like this, but he basically said, "Oi," to Moses, like, what am I going to do with these people? What am I going to do with, what do I have to do to get them to trust me? So God's plan is, for 40 years it ended up being, because they didn't go into the land and trust God, which we went through on Father's Day, looking at Caleb's story. So it ended up being 40 years. Every morning when they woke up, there was this stuff on the ground. It was white, and it tasted a little sweet like honey. And they called it what? Manna. And you know what manna sounds like in Hebrew? If you read like the margin, it sounds like, what is it? So every day they woke up, they're like, we got some more, what is it? And they would eat it. And then on the sixth day, they got twice as much, so they didn't have to work on the Sabbath. So every day for 40 years, they ate, what is it? How many of you remember Keith Green, like from back in the day? Any of you? You want to go back to Egypt, his album. And it's quite a comedic song as well. All the things they were trying to do with manna, banana bread, and all the things they would be doing with it. But that, can you imagine eating the same thing for 40 years? God, in a way, blessed them and sustained them, but he also was teaching them a lesson that he would have provided for them if they had not complained and said, you're untrustworthy, God. We'd rather be slaves. We don't want to keep going your way. You're not going to lead us to a good place. We're going to die out here. So God's gift came with an experience that reminded them every day they ate the same thing. God's sustaining us, but it's also a reminder that we wouldn't trust God to take care of us. So every day we're going to eat the same thing. God's going to provide for us every single day, but also it could have looked different if we had trusted him, if we had gone into the promised land, if we had obeyed him instead of rebelling time and time again. So they were commanded to celebrate that festival of unleavened bread. Every day they had this reminder of manna from heaven. One of Jesus' prayers when he taught us to pray, Lord, give us this day our daily bread. Now, if you're Jewish and a rabbi tells you that, what does your mind go to? Manna. Manna. He gives us every day what we need. If you're poor, like the people that Jesus ministered to, they were not the upper crust, they were the poor. He was the working poor. Most of the people he knew were working poor. They were struggling under the taxes of Rome, just keeping them alive. They didn't want to tax them too much, so they died, so they just take enough so they remained perpetually poor. And one of the things they thanked God for every day was that they had bread to eat that day. I don't know about you, but I have way more than that. Way more than that. And it all, like to me, my thanks have to be for way bigger things, because I don't even think it's a big deal that I have bread to eat every day, because I've lived in incredible privilege here in this country. There are many places, I have friends that go into refugee camps every day to minister to people who aren't sure. They might know if they have food that day, but they don't know about the next month. Is the UN truck going to come? Is something going to happen? Is our corrupt leadership going to take the food? Are we going to have food? Is something that many people in the world, even today, still wonder. And so Jesus teaches us to thank God to pray for our daily bread. But that daily bread, that manna, just like Passover was a picture of Jesus on the cross, manna was a picture of him providing for us everything we need. Because daily bread isn't just physical, it's also spiritual. It's a reminder that we're dependent on God for everything that we have. In this period of time, there was another prophecy, and these three things are all going to come together. Passover, unleavened bread, manna. And a third thing is toward the end of his life, Moses was talking about the future. And you know the first 5 books of the Old Testament are called by Jews Torah. So Genesis, everybody knows the first book, right? Genesis, if you know them, say them with me. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. What does Deuteronomy mean? So it comes from 2 Greek words. Deutero means second. Nomos means law, the second law. So Deuteronomy is like retelling everything that's happened from Exodus to Numbers. And it's reminding the people of the covenant they made on Sinai. And now these are the next generation about to go into the promised land again. Their parents had disobeyed and not gone in. So God gives them a big review. Okay, we're going to go back to the drawing board. Now, here's what went wrong before. Now, you're my people. We're going to go into the land this time. The manna is going to stop. You're going to have amazing crops and animals and things to eat there. Look forward to that. It's coming. You're going to go into the promised land this time. So Moses is training them and teaching the next generation what it means to live for God in covenant, in relationship with him. So that's what Deuteronomy means. So as part of this book of Deuteronomy, Moses said something really interesting that's going to come, the third thing. Unleavened bread, manna, a prophet to come. Moses continued, "The Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me," which is why it's important to know who Moses is. Abraham, Moses, David. Important to know who those 3 people. "Like me, this prophet that's coming will be like me from among your fellow Israelites. You must listen to him. I will raise up a prophet like you from among their fellow Israelites," God is saying. "I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell the people everything I command him." So God's people have now been looking forward for 1,400 years to this prophet. And there have been many, 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 many prophets. But none of them said they were this prophet. The one greater than Moses, the one that was coming, the one they were waiting for, the one who would speak the very words of God in a way that no other prophet did. They've been waiting for 1,400 years. Unleavened bread, manna, a prophet who's to come. Now we get to John 6. Now we're ready to look at John 6. So Jesus is the Sea of Galilee. It's called the sea a lot of times. It's a lake. It's about the same size as Lake Tahoe, actually. So if you've been to Tahoe, you have an idea what the Sea of Galilee is like. You can look to the other shore. It's like several miles across. So we got to be there 2.5 years ago. It's really cool. But it's a lake, you know. And people go across it in boats and they fish different parts, even still today. So Jesus is on the east side of the lake. He's teaching. All these people follow him. They come. It's like Woodstock. Like, if you know the story of Woodstock, they weren't expecting that many people. So, like, all these people show up, and they have no taco trucks that lined up for people to eat. So Jesus says, "Hey, I think it was Philip." He goes, "Philip, why don't you get some food for everybody?" He's, I don't know if you're good at counting, Jesus, but there's 5,000 men we're going to write in the Bible. And in our culture, we don't count the women and children equally. But let's say there's 15,000 people here, Jesus. And you want me to give them bread to eat? If we had 6 months' wages, everybody could have like a little piece of a cracker, like we're going to eat in a little bit. If we had 6 months' wages, we could get that. Are you kidding me? And then someone finds a little kid with his lunch. He's got, 5 barley loaves and 2 fish, little fish, salted cod probably, or whatever I forget the name of the fish they ate most. But it's a salted fish that is preserved. 5 little barley loaves, like a biscuit. Think like a biscuit. And barley's like what poor people eat. They don't have money to eat wheat, so they eat barley loaves. So a poor kid's lunch that his mom sent off, and apparently all the other moms were not good moms because nobody else had lunches. Nobody had lunches. Sorry, I made that about women providing lunches. Men can do lunches too for their kids. So this one kid, is like, well, I got this. And Jesus turns into a feast for everybody. And at the end of the feast, everybody's satisfied. And Jesus sends his disciples out into the crowd to collect something. Does anybody remember what they collected? 12 baskets of leftovers. So there's a biblical verse for you about saving leftovers. If you don't like to save them, it's right there in the Bible. Save your leftovers. Tupperware. So he collects they collect the baskets of leftover bread. Why? For leftovers to eat tomorrow? No, that's not really the point. It's to say that he provided food miraculously in a wilderness where there was nothing. He provided out of a little tiny lunch enough food for 10 or 15,000 people to eat. And not only that, there were leftovers. It's like God is so gracious and kind and abundant with us. And it's not just the physical, it's how loving he is, how giving he is, how generous he is toward us. And how many baskets were there of leftovers? 12. How many tribes are there? How many disciples did he call to specially walk with him? 12. 12, 12, 12, 12. So what he's saying is, you disciples, I'm the one leading the new 12 tribes of Israel. You're like the 12 sons of Jacob / Israel. You're representing my people. I am leading you on a journey. I'm going to provide for you. You'll see that physically. You just experienced it. But I'm going to provide for you and lead you spiritually. You're going to be a new Israel, a Jewish group of people who's going to be the new Israel, who's going to bring a kingdom that's going to be fulfilling of what was promised to Abraham, a blessing for the whole world, the whole world. So that's the point of the 12 baskets. It's a reminder that they're 12 tribes, that God's been with them forever. So when the people saw him do the miraculous sign of the feeding, they exclaimed, "Surely he is" who? Are we on there? Okay, there we go. Surely he is who? The prophet. What prophet? The one we've been waiting for since Moses' day. The prophet. Surely he is the prophet that we've been waiting for. When Jesus saw that they were ready to force him to be their king, he slipped away into the hills by himself. People like deliverers who will get them out of their suffering. And so they see him. Oh, he's doing miracles. He must be the one that Moses told us about. Let's force him to be our king and then get these Romans out of here. This is it. We're gonna have victory. And Jesus multiple times was being pushed into roles by people that wasn't his purpose. He had no problem saying, "No, I'm not here to be that kind of king now. We'll learn later. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, yes, but not in the way they expected. Leading a spiritual kingdom." So we learn there in John 6, and this is not a coincidence that Jesus did this miracle at that time. It was nearly time for the Jewish Passover celebration, we saw in verse 4 of chapter 6. So the next day they stay, they wait, they're going to see what's the miracle going to be today. Jesus hightails it out of there at night. He's gone. They wake up, they're like, where's Jesus? Where's Jesus? We need more bread. And he's gone. He goes to the other side of the lake. And so they find him. And then they have this interaction. Jesus told them, this is the only work God wants from you. Believe in the one he has sent. They answered, show us a miraculous sign if you want us to believe in you. He just did the day before. What can you do? After all, our ancestors ate manna. Remember, unleavened bread, manna, the prophet who's to come. Our ancestors ate manna while they journeyed through the wilderness. The scriptures say Moses gave them bread from heaven to eat. So they attribute it to Moses. And Jesus said, I tell you the truth, Moses didn't give you bread from heaven. My Father did. And now he offers you the true bread from heaven. The true bread of God is the one who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Bread gives life. I give life. If they would see in faith, he's saying, I am the bread of life. Sir, they said, give us this bread every day. We'd love to get a miracle out of some kid's lunch every day. This is awesome. And Jesus replied, I am the bread of life. You think Moses gave you manna. I'm telling you that I am my Father who is me. I am the bread of life. I give life. I give bread. I am the bread. So the great I am, Jesus says. If they would listen to their scriptures, he's letting them know in a coded word from their story that they've walked with for 1,400 years. Remember Exodus 3. That's me. Remember the prophet who was to come. That's me. Remember the manna. That's me. Remember the unleavened bread that has no sin in it. That's me. Jesus replied, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry again. Whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. A little later, verse 41. Then the people began to murmur in disagreement because he had said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. It's a great word. One of the words that happens a lot, this is now written in Greek, but in Hebrew, when the people are in the wilderness, there were lots of times where they were murmuring. And this is a vocabulary word for, our English teacher over here. Does a lot of English teaching anyway. Onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia. How many of you know that word? Okay, this will be fun. So an onomatopoeia is a word that sounds like, that's written to represent a sound, like buzz, achoo. Those are onomatopoeias. And murmur is an onomatopoeia because when people are grumbling in the Old Testament in the wilderness, they're like, this is a God doing us thing, I'm going to go bring back slavery in Egypt. Murmuring. They're murmuring all through the time in the wilderness. Murmur, 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 murmur. So the people start murmuring in disagreement, just like their ancestors, because he had said, I'm the bread that came down from heaven. And then they ask, I don't have this on the screen, isn't this Jesus, son of Joseph? We know his father and mother. How can he say I came down from heaven? So they have some more interaction. A little bit later, Jesus says, I tell you the truth, anyone who believes has eternal life. Yes, I am, he says it again, the bread of life. You might not have heard me the first time. I am the bread of life. Your ancestors ate manna in the wilderness, but they all died. Anyone who eats the bread from heaven, however, will never die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Anyone who eats this bread will live forever, and this bread which I will offer, so the world may live, is my flesh." Then the people started arguing with each other because they were taking him quite literally. How is he going to give us his flesh to eat? And more murmuring. So Jesus says again, "I am the true bread that came down from heaven. Anyone who eats this bread will not die, as your ancestors did, even though they ate the manna, but will live forever." And he said these things while he was teaching in the synagogue in Capernaum. So some lessons that we can take from this about Jesus' identity, who he is, that seem familiar to us, but it's good to remember where they came from. God spent so much time in the Old Covenant, the Old Testament, the First Covenant, the First Testament, laying the groundwork for when his son would come and putting all the breadcrumbs, to use bread again, breadcrumbs leading to his identity. They're all in there. And so what Jesus and the apostles do is they unpack the Old Testament for us because they did not have a New Testament that was going to be written. Jesus didn't have a New Testament. He was the New Testament, the new covenant, the new contract between God and us. But all these breadcrumbs in the Old Testament, and when Jesus did a Bible study with those two people on the road to Emmaus that we went through a couple months ago, it would be wonderful to just sit in that Bible study and hear all the things he told them. And some of them would have been, remember the unleavened bread? That was me. Remember the manna? That was me. Remember the Passover lamb? That was me. Remember the blood on the doorpost? That was me. So Jesus is the Passover lamb. He is the one that a family would take in. If they had a small family, they were to gather together. But Passover was a private family thing. A priest didn't sit in your home and mediate that for you. You had your own feast and your own connection to God. You raised a lamb. And it was brutal in the old days. Kids knew where meat came from. You raised a lamb. You slaughtered the lamb. You took the lamb and applied it to the doorposts of your house. And then you ate the lamb together. You ate the flesh of the lamb as a picture that we're to take Jesus into our lives spiritually. He is that Passover lamb whose blood allows the judgment of God to pass over us when we trust him. He is the blood that gives life. In the Old Testament, it says the life is in the blood. It's not to be bloody, because Hebrews didn't think so much like we think blood, we think horror movies or something. They thought, when they saw blood, they thought life. That's where life is. Life is in the blood. So when they see blood, it's a picture to them of life. This is what makes life happen. And so he is the blood that gives life. He is the prophet greater than Moses. He's the one they have been waiting 1,400 years for. He's the Father's manna from heaven who supplies all of our needs. He's our daily bread. He's the I am, come in the flesh. He's God with us. He's the one, when Moses asked, "Who are you? Who do I tell your people sent me? Who are you? What's your name?" And he said, "I am." And Jesus is now saying, "I am. I'm Yahweh, come in the flesh." He's the unleavened bread without sin. He's our daily bread we need for spiritual life to thrive in us. So the I am changes who I am. If I really believe Jesus is I am, I will rest in him for my salvation. One of the things that is something we always need to be reminded of is that our only hope is Jesus. We are not going to perform our way into relationship with God. We're not going to be good enough, holy enough, right behaving enough, right thinking enough, right feeling enough. We're not going We're not going to manage our sin enough to deserve to get into heaven. It doesn't work that way. Human beings love to deserve. We love to deserve things. And God knows that about us. And he says, I want to let you know I love you not because you deserve it. I love you because I'm loving, and I've made you to be loved by me and to respond in love. But I don't love you because you deserve to be loved by your good behavior. And one of the things that can happen to us the longer we're Christians is we start out knowing that we're saved and rescued and redeemed and delivered through a Red Sea because Jesus loves us by grace and mercy and kindness. We start out that way. But pretty soon people start telling us how to behave in our Christian life and how to be better. And so we start adding a bunch of things that we're supposed to do. And after a while, sometimes we think it's those things that we do now, and we're like better people than we used to be. And it's the being better people that's the most important thing to God. And it's not. He doesn't love us more the better we behave than when we were lost. He just loves us. We are blessed when we receive his love in gratitude. And we know, man, thank you for rescuing me. I want to follow you and get better at showing back to you that I love you back. But that's not what makes me loved. It's something I do to offer back to you love. Sometimes we get confused, and we think that Christianity is like a sin management program. It's not. It's a love-growing program. That's really what it is. It's a love-growing program. How do we receive love better? How do we give love better to God and other people? That's what Jesus said the essence of it's all about. The rabbis counted all the Old Testament commands, and they say there are 613 of them. If you thought you had, not enough sin in your life, just find the 613 and give yourself a score on every single one of them. Jesus said it's not about that. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. It's a love program. It's not a sin management program. So really, are we still counting on him for our salvation? The way you know it is if you answer a couple of questions that I sometimes use with people. First one is, if you were to die today, do you know for sure you're going to be with the Lord? And if someone says, nope, I don't know, then that's when you share that you don't deserve to be with the Lord, but Jesus has made a way for you, and if you trust him, he will forgive you and welcome you for all eternity. From that moment on, eternal life begins then, for all eternity. You share the good news. The second question, if they say, yeah, I think I am. So a second question that's really good to ask someone when you're talking about faith or yourself is, if I were to die today and go to meet God, and he asks me, why should I let you into heaven? Which is a hypothetical question, I know, but why should I let you into heaven? Your answer tells you everything about what you're counting on to be with God. What I normally hear from someone who doesn't know Jesus is the first one, they'll often say like, no, I don't know. If they go to church, they might say yes because they know that's the right answer. Yes, I'll go to be with him. And then if I ask them, if he asks you, why should I let you in? I'll find out whether they're really trusting in Jesus still by the way they answer that question. And sometimes what people say is, well, I've tried to follow the 10 Commandments. I've tried to be loving, and I go to church, and I read my Bible, and I don't pray as much as I should, but I do pray sometimes. And I had a chance to tell someone about Jesus once, and what it is a resume of performance, of works, of our own goodness. I used to be this way, now I don't do that anymore. Here's my resume, God. God's like, I made it clear all through the Bible. y'all fail over and over. There's no resume that's going to get you into heaven. He's like, just come in. It's free. I welcome you. But the place you have to start is, I'm not getting in by deserving it. I'm getting in by receiving it, by trusting it, by believing, by putting my hope in you and not in myself. So the right answer to those two questions, the right answer, if I'm answering correctly and you ask me, do you believe if you were to die today, you'd go to be with the Lord? I would say yes. And then if you said, well, if God asked you, why should I let you into heaven? My answer would be something like this. I don't deserve to go to heaven. I haven't been good enough. I failed you before I knew you terribly. I've failed you since I've known you terribly. I've never managed to get through a whole day living my life completely for you. Not even a whole day. I don't deserve it. Thank you for growing me and helping me to grow in this life, to experience your goodness and your kindness and teaching me something about loving you back. But I'm not getting it on my resume. I don't deserve it. I'm here to receive it. And thank you. You said if I put my trust in Jesus, he would welcome me in. It's because he's righteous that I'm getting into heaven. It's because he died for my sins I'm getting into heaven. It's because he rose from the dead that I'm conquering death. It's nothing to do with me and everything to do with you. That's the right answer. And sometimes we forget that. So communion, which Jesus started at Passover, is a reminder that we have been saved, that we are being saved. Because every time they remembered not just the past. Like a long time ago, God did cool stuff. No, he's saving us today every time they did Passover. And he's going to save us in the future. He's leading us to a promised land. We are going to get there. He's in charge. So that second point, if I really believe Jesus as I am, I can become less anxious and more generous with time, talent, treasure that God has given me. Everything I have comes from God. I become more generous. I become like him. I'm like, I want to be used by you in this world. I want to make this world a better place, a more loving place. I want to use all of who I am to bless you in response of you doing for me. So if you didn't get communion on the way in, you're kind of trained to do it the first Sunday of the month. I asked this morning, hey, I should have done this out of order, like chronologically in the gospel, and we should have just done communion in 2 weeks, but you're going to get a bonus communion today. So if you didn't get your communion, I think somebody's going to walk by with some. There you go, Kenny Scott. I got to go grab mine down here. If you're new here, you are welcome to the table. If you have asked Jesus to forgive your sins and lead your life, you are welcome at the table. And if you haven't done that, do it right now. Say, Jesus, I need to be forgiven. I need to be changed. I need your help to become a more loving person. Would you teach me? Would you be my Passover lamb? So he took that Passover meal, and if you haven't done it here before, the bread's on the bottom, so peel that one first. It'll go better. It'll go better when you have the juice. So he took that unleavened bread at the Passover meal, and he broke it, he tore it, and he passed it around to his disciples. And remember, Passover was a family thing. You did it with your parents, your children, your grandchildren. It was a family event. And all these single dudes are hanging out together. And Jesus is saying, you're not even with your families right now. You're my family. And you're going to create a family feeling around the world where people know that they're brothers and sisters because of me. So take this unleavened bread, pass it around, and then he said, this unleavened bread in the covenant, in the wilderness, in Passover, it was always about me. I'm the unleavened bread. Eat me. Receive my life. Take and eat. And then he took one of the cups of wine, and he said, This is my blood. I'm the Passover lamb. That blood that was applied to those doorposts, that was my blood. I'm the way that judgment passes over your life. I am. I am. This is my blood. Take and drink that you might have life. So if you want to come forward for prayer, we'll have folks at the front that can pray with you, or you can turn to someone near you or call someone during the week. But if you have things you'd love prayer for, there's a place for you to do that right now.